Did you know that underdeveloped nations are prone to more diseases such as avian influenza, cholera, and Escherichia coli than developed nations? Have you ever wondered if the United Nations Chartered World Trade Organization may have a hand in this imbalance? Although these three diseases ran rampant around the world before the enactment of the Multilateral Trade Agreement on Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures and the Technical Barriers to Trade, after its enactment, cases of these diseases decreased in developed nations and were relatively unchanged in underdeveloped nations.
The SPS portion of the agreement governs on an international level the standards and measures that affect the health of humans, plants, and animals through disease-carrying organisms. The TBT portion of the agreement ensures that standard equivalence is practiced among member nations and that inquiry points and national notification authorities are set. The establishment of inquiry points also implies the traceability principle, which requires that all products come with a detailed label of where and how they were produced.
In order to determine whether the relationship represented causation or correlation, our team decided to track the diseases and the effect the agreement had on trade in areas around the world. We hypothesized that since elements of the agreement seemed to favor wealthier nations, they discriminated against the products of less fortunate nations.
In order to track the spread of the diseases, we had to track the trade of their main vectors: poultry for avian influenza, seafood for cholera, and beef for E. coli. Our research was mainly derived from a copy of the original Multilateral Trade Agreement, reports from international and global organizations, scholarly journals, academic printed books, and encyclopedias. After thorough investigation, our team concluded that the Multilateral Trade Agreement did play a part in the containment and spread of all of these diseases.
Avian influenza typically infects poultry from South Asian and East Asian regions. For avian influenza, this prevented the underdeveloped countries from circulating their infected poultry, but did not provide any precautions for trade within the nation. This caused the infected poultry to circulate within the nation and to surrounding regions and increased cases of avian influenza overall.
Analyzing cholera, we found that the agreement had a similar effect on the spread of that disease as it did on avian influenza. With E. coli, we found that it had a positive effect on the containment of this disease. However, this was only because the nations that produce beef for the beef trade are able to financially comply with the agreement's elements.
Generally, the Multilateral Trade Agreement caused epidemics in underdeveloped countries because they were unable to comply with the standards set in the agreement.
Meanwhile, the developed nations were able to better safeguard their agricultural products because the agreement allowed them to pinpoint their trade partners with infested foodstuffs.
Thus, the link between the Multilateral Trade Agreement and prevalence of diseases can be safely deemed as causation.